Hey guys, it's ExandShadow. Yeah, so after like 3 weeks of playing and hyping up this impressions video, I've finally beaten Final Fantasy 2. 4. Japanese 2, American 4. Anyway, yeah, I played the original SNES version because that's the one that was on the Virtual Console, but it's also on Game Boy Advance or on DS, so if you want a more modern version, you can go for that too. So yeah, when it comes to me and RPGs, there are only two series that I've really played before this: Paper Mario and Pokemon. Now, if you've been following my channel, you obviously know about me and Pokemon. I'm a huge fan, and you probably also know about me and Paper Mario. The first two games are some of my favorite games of all time. However, I did know that Pokemon and Paper Mario aren't really real RPGs in the main sense. Pokemon is a very simple RPG. It's easy for kids to pick up, and Paper Mario is more platformer than RPG in a lot of ways. They're both amazing games, but they're not traditional RPGs. And so I just figured that I should probably play a Final Fantasy game. Not only just for the culture aspect and for the you should probably play this aspect, but also it's the first real quotation marks obviously, the first real RPG that I've ever really played. So I picked Final Fantasy 2 because A, I heard that one was the easiest in the series, and B, because, well, I could get it on the Virtual Console. I've heard that 6, 7, 9, I've heard that those three are better, but 6 is on the Virtual Console, and I can't play 7 or 9 unless I have a PlayStation. So, yeah, Final Fantasy IV. I love this game. It was an amazing game for me. Back when I was a kid playing games like Paper Mario, I would spend weeks and weeks playing the same game, trying to figure out everything, do it on my own, just play the game to its fullest. And I did this with Final Fantasy II, and this is the first time I've ever done something like that for a game in a really long time. Yeah, sure, I looked up guides here and there for side quest stuff and for some tips on bosses, but for the most part I did do this on my own. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with this game. I would recommend it to any RPG fan or anybody who wants to get into RPGs. So yeah, for anybody who doesn't know, Final Fantasy II follows the story of the Dark Knight Cecil. He's a Dark Knight, and he's following orders from his king that he doesn't really agree with. Like, he's burning down towns and he's stealing things, and he doesn't really agree with this. But yeah, after he sees the damage that he's done, he tries to right what's wrong and fix what he's done, and thus begins an epic tale of redemption. And this game's story is pretty good. It's not the deepest story I've ever seen in a game, but, for 1991, it's pretty good, and the characters are definitely relatable. When it comes to the writing, you can tell that this is a translated game. If all of your base, if all your base is like a 10 on the hilariously bad translated scale, the SNES version of Final Fantasy IV is kind of like a constant 4 or 5, Not so bad to the point where it's unreadable or hilarious, but, it's phrased awkwardly a lot of the time. But yeah, other than the awkward translation at points, the writing and characters is really good. You get to love the characters. Twin casters Palarum and Porum are pretty awesome. I love Edge, I love Rydia, I love Cecil. Kane is pretty cool too. Oh yeah, for anybody playing the Final Fantasy IV, try the Final Fantasy IV drinking game. Every time Kane switches sides, you'll take a drink. You'll be hammered by the end of the game. So yeah, it's I love the characters in this game, and the story. And well, I have to say something about the story. This story likes to make you feel bad. Characters die. It makes you think that characters die, though at the end you figure out that a lot of that's bullshit. So yeah, it's an emotional roller coaster ride, and the fact that I was getting emotionally attached to characters that I didn't really know just from franchises. Like in Phoenix Wright, I got emotionally attached when stuff happened to say Maya because I knew her. But when I got emotionally attached when I thought that Palrum and Porum died, even though I've only had them in my party for a few hours, kudos to the game for doing that. But anyway, yeah. When it comes to gameplay, it's an RPG, so gameplay is kind of secondary when you think about it. But the battle system isn't exactly of turn-based. It's sort of a kind of a mix between real turn-based and real time, in that you can be picking it's kind of hard to explain, but if you play it, you know what it means. You know what I mean. The game is pretty easy, like people said that it was. I didn't have much trouble until it got to the very end, and then I spent like my last week of gameplay trying to level up, trying to beat the final boss. Now, that's not just because it's that the final boss is that hard. I had my own technical problems. You know, my brother sort of turned the game off while I was playing at one point, so I had to redo some level grinding there. The game froze. That's probably the Virtual Console emulation problem, but the game froze, so I had to do some more level grinding there. So yeah, it was my own fault for having to redo some of this level grinding, but it did take a while. So maybe if you're better at this, you can gauge your level grinding a little bit better than I did. But for the most part, the game is pretty easy. But it's not really about that. It's more the story and you interacting with the story. The gameplay is good and it gets you into the game, but in the end, an RPG really, well, unless if it's Pokemon or Paper Mario, because that's kind of how it separates themselves. But most RPGs are more about the story than about the battle system, I'd say. I'd take a game with a relatively simple battle system and a good story over a game with a simple battle system and a bad story any day. So yeah, wait, did I say that wrong? Never mind. Yeah. Well, what else is there to talk about? Well, there's the graphics. You can tell that this is an early Super Nintendo game because the game likes to use Mode 7 an awful lot. And I mean an awful lot. Now, is that a bad thing? No. Some of the effects are really cool. Like the final boss scene, that's a really great use of Mode 7. And flying around in the airship and you see the world sort of like flat below you, that's pretty cool. But there are some points when it's a little bit unnecessary, but they're few and far between. Other than that, it's a pretty standard looking game. Not great, not horrible. But okay. But when it comes to the music, however, this is an awesome soundtrack. All of the battle themes are memorable. Some of the overworld themes, like the mountain theme and the cave themes, they can get a little bit repetitive. But on a whole, the game's soundtrack is just fantastic. If I had to pick a favorite song, it would probably be "The Dreadful Fight," the one that plays when you're fighting the four lords of the elements. You know, that's probably my favorite song. Yeah, I can't talk. But yeah, anything else to talk about? Well, just overall, I would recommend this game to pretty much anyone, unless if you don't like RPGs. Yeah, I'd say that it's a classic actually. If it can affect me being a mostly new school gamer, it deserves to be played. I'll say that much. Whether it's better or worse than other Final Fantasy games, I can't say. This is the only one I've played. And I'm gonna work on playing 5 and 6 next because the Super Nintendo Final Fantasies are the ones that I'm the most into. But for now I'm gonna take a break because this game did take a lot out of me. But yeah, it's a good game. Try it out. This has been ExandShadow, and I'll see you guys later.